Hey, Stoney here with another game of Mechabellum. In this game, I'll be up against a 1900 plus MMR player from the 201 server. His name roughly translates into silly vegetables. So in this game, I will be playing supply specialist against my opponent, who is a fortify specialist. So it used to be called the heavy armor. They changed the wording since the last patch to fortified, but it is the same stats. The units get 17% more HP. I'm starting with tanks and fans with a set, tanks and marksman, and then I added 2 more fans for defense. My opponent started with steel balls and arc lights, and he added 2 sets of trawlers. Now you may wonder, why do I have my units on the side instead of right there in the middle? Well, that's because it is very common for the player that plays steel balls and crawlers to go aggro on the side. The reason for that is the steel ball crawler are fast moving units that can get to the tower very quickly, and by combining the forces on one side, the game plan is usually get to the tower, get debuff, and then use their speed to run over to the other side where units are being debuffed and deal the damage. So I didn't want to lose to that immediately, or didn't want to be in a disadvantageous position, so I put my units on the side to counter. And of course, it is a gamble, right? I could choose the wrong side, or in this case, my opponent did decide to go with an even spread. It is, it's still a difficult game because he has arc lights, which is stopping the thing that is stopping the steel balls. All right, round 2 cards. My opponent picked nano, and I picked mass-produced sledgehammers. Now you may wonder, there are already 2 sledgehammers on the board. Why are you making your tanks even weaker by picking mass-produced sledges? Well, reason number 1 is because I noticed that my opponent has a lot of steel balls, and I am not preparing to use my sledgehammers against his steel balls. However, I do want my sledgehammers to be a bit of a chaff for his steel balls, considering he already has 3 sets of arc light as well. And 2, because he's a fast moving type of composition, so every time you see a unit that's fast moving, steel balls, crawlers, that sort of thing, they are at their strongest if all of their units are engaging in the battle together at one point. So having something that can pull them away effectively and creating a bit more problem for him to deal with is always good. The steel balls, while being very strong against sledgehammers, they do take a bit of time, right? They have to charge up their beams. They have to, take a bit of time to get to my units. So it allows me to use now very cheap sledgehammers as flanking units and to hold down this death ball, if you will, of an army. And simply by breaking up his units and forcing them to attack in waves instead of all together, you're able to drastically decrease the effectiveness of your opponent's board. Now, that is not to say that it doesn't work with like a slower composition. It certainly does. But it's just that with the unit that my opponent has, now it takes a lot longer, because not only the unit has to move, so these steel balls, they have to move right here. They have to charge up, right? And because I use sledgehammers instead of regular like fans as a flank distraction, he can't simply respond with more crawlers because my sledgehammers will actually kill his crawlers. So that is actually forcing him to tie up at least 2 units with my sledgehammers. And as you see from the last game, or last round, this side of the sledgehammers actually won the battle against even level 2 crawlers. So he has to respect this threat, and when he respects the threat on the side for a fast moving board, he is giving up power. He's losing that punch that he's supposed to have. So at round 3, I've decided to have a solid answer against the steel balls, and Scorpion is my unit of choice. All right, so my opponent did add another set of steel balls on the flank to deal with my tank. So now I'm effectively tying two sets of units worth a total of 300 supplies with a 100 supply unit set. Actually, more than 300 because these crawlers are being pulled as well. All right, at the front, my scorpions are just walking a little too fast. I'm not the biggest fan of that. Assault Scorpion was a card that I chose last game. So Assault Scorpion allows a drastically increased attack speed. I think it's about 33% or something like that. At the cost of range, of course. But that's okay. I just didn't have money to buy extended range on this round. And with extended range, these Scorpions are absolute beasts of a unit. Because they fire so fast, they can actually clear chaff very efficiently. And when Scorpions get locked on, as long as they're not tower debuffed, they should be able to bring them down in a fairly efficient manner. Alright, so the balls are being locking onto the fangs. I still have one marksman left over, and even though I lost both of my Scorpions, I was still able to take the round. Alright, unit cards. Lots of interesting options. Stormcrawlers is pretty bad because most of his units move very fast, so Stormcrawlers are probably not going to hit a lot of things. Mustangs would be good as long as they don't run into the Arclights. I didn't really need chaff clear from my Mustangs because I already have very cheap sledgehammers. And with Mech Rage, they're excellent chaff clear as well, and I can just keep throwing them down because they only cost 100 supply. So Mustang didn't make a lot of sense in the long run. So really the only thing that's left over are these Phoenixes. Phoenixes adds a layer of problem, and yes, I already have the marksman here, but I wanted to see if I can do a bit of a sneaky attack, get rid of his Arclights, so that allows my Phoenixes to get in there and do a bit more damage. Unfortunately, my opponent also picked the Phoenixes. And they're just picking mines off and maybe even getting a level or two. So that's not good. And what that means for me is I probably should start selling those Phoenixes. Which I was really going to anyways because I already had the marksman. And they are all leveled, so it makes sense for me to just sell the Phoenixes, keep the marksman. But we'll see. They are level 2 Phoenixes and they can be very useful. Alright, so this round goes to my opponent. It just has a bit more chaff coming down this way. Not a problem. I took the haste module and I sold, I decided not to sell the Phoenixes. They're getting jump drive instead. And I'm trying something else again. So jump drive is a 50 supply investment. I wanted to see if I'm able to build up on this flank just a bit more. What I didn't know was that my opponent is going to put 2 DJ being Wraith right there on the line, on the flank. And that is going to foil my plan of flanking with Phoenixes. Well, what can you do, right? Sometimes your opponent is that good and they know exactly what you're trying to do. So all that you can do is just to suck it up and try to come up with better tempo play. All right. Phoenix got destroyed, but I do have 3 Scorpions now on the front line, and they're just completely deleting my opponent's steel balls. These marksmen are working very hard to get these Wraith. So what that means is somewhere down the line, I will need to get anti-air on these marksmen. Not only they'll become very good at dealing these Wraith, but they can also deal with these Phoenixes a lot more efficiently as well. Alright, so looking at the board, it seems like I still have a bit of a chaff clear problem on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, I should be winning. And with anti-air marksman, I should be winning the long-range fight as well. Alright, units are offered. Typhoon is a great answer to a chaff problem, so I picked the Typhoons right away. From my opponent, I think he's either going to take Rhino or he's going to take Fortresses, both of which I have an answer for. So my opponent did end up taking fortresses to deal with my scorpions. Right now I already have range, and more importantly, these are assault scorpions, so they shoot extra fast, which means they can actually bring down the fortresses in just a few shots, in just a few seconds rather. I added double shot. I was debating to go with acid or double shot. If you're against fortresses, you're better off going with acid because the fortresses are moving very slowly and they tend to stay at one place and shoot at you. So acid not only allow you to deal a much harder damage on a subsequent shot, it also allows your chaff, or in this case maybe even marksman, to deal more damage. So 250% more damage for any unit that's standing in the acid. I didn't know if he's going to go with fortresses. He could have gone with the high level rhino, and in which case the double shot is going to be better because the rhino will just keep moving and not really standing in the acid. But either way, double shot isn't too shabby against the fortress as well. And the typhoon is now solving my chaff problem. Okay. So this is going to be a very strong round for me. Not only did the fortress not stand up to my onslaught of scorpions, the air units are falling very quickly to my anti-air marksman. I no longer have a chaff problem on this side, thanks to these typhoons. On the other side, I think I'm doing okay. I think the typhoon just dying a little bit earlier than I liked, but that's okay. I still have plenty of units on the other side, so now it's just a balancing game on one to the other. Alright, so let's move the units over. Let's get the Wraith. Steel balls did get locked on, and they are going to do a little bit more damage. Alright. M-Core, improved power control. They're both great cards on a Typhoon. But instead, I've added them onto the Scorpions. Now, why did I add them onto Scorpions instead of Typhoons? Well, the answer is twofold. Reason number one, Typhoons right now are mostly shooting at crawlers. Yes, we have a level 3 crawler here and level 3 crawler, in some places. But I think the Typhoon is more than sufficient in dealing with those as well. What I don't have enough firepower for is fortresses. He's already started with the 2 fortresses. I expect more fortresses. So I really need a reliable way of bringing down fortresses. And on a one-on-one fight of a Scorpion versus the fortress, the Scorpion will actually lose. So I wanted to make sure that I don't ever fall behind on the giant war. As far as chaff goes, even if the Typhoon fails, I can always add my cheap 100 supply sledgehammers. They themselves are chaff clear, so I'm not too worried about the chaff clear side of things. So as expected, my opponent did add 2 more fortresses. My flank is still doing a lot of work. As you can see, these fortresses on the flank are completely naked, allowing my Scorpions just to get in, deal the damage, while the chaff is coming in, but that's without any support from his giant units. Like, my 200 supply at the flanks continue to pay dividends, even at round 7. And there's very little that he can do, because this is not just a set of fans. You cannot put a missile or double missile. If he does start doing double missile, I just add shielded fans here, then he will just be wasting a lot of missile on chaff. So a very convincing round for me. Alright, a lot of interesting cards here. I've decided to skip because I really think this is the last round. For my opponent, what can he do? Well, he could certainly add more chaff in the form of fans up here. Fans do work against both the sledgehammers if you put them in a vertical configuration, so they do tank quite a few shots, hopefully allowing most of his units from behind to come forward. Instead, my opponent added more fortresses and added fan summon, or fan production. The problem with fan production is that you're not going to have early fans and you're not going to have enough fans. All right, so for me, instead of adding more scorpions, which would be the natural response, I wanted to make sure that my units also getting on this anti-fortress fight. So I added double shot with acid. So double shot with acid effectively quadruples the damage of the scorpion. So why do I say quadruple? Well, I'm going to slow the game down a little bit while I explain. Double shot doubles the damage of the scorpion, right? Acid increases the second shot by 250%, right? So in reality, you're actually doing 4.5 shots for every attack cycle from the scorpion. So just watch how quickly one scorpion brings down a fortress. And of course, this one is a level 3. You know it's going to kill this fortress. It's being, well, electromag, that's fine. But notice the one on the far right, right? That one was a level 2 scorpion, and that was one-shotting a fortress. That's how strong these tech combinations are. I am going to win on this side. I'm going to get tower. Anti-air marksman are going to take care of this wraith. And that should be the end of the game. All right, hope you enjoyed this game, and I hope to see you on the next one.